Good afternoon and welcome to Self-Build Hour. As a reminder, I'm Jenny Chandela. I'm your host today. I'm an architect and the head of the Swindon office for Alan Corfield Architects. We've started these Self-Build Hours, or we've been hosting these self-build hours for over a year, almost a year and a half now. And really the idea of these is to focus on a specific self-build topic every month, invite an expert to speak to us on that topic, and get that in-depth dive for all of you who are thinking about self-build or in the midst of self-build. And these are recorded. For those of you who are attending live today, you have the additional benefit that you can ask questions directly to our speaker. We ask that you do that through the Q&A function that is on Teams. And then at the end of our expert presentation, we will open it up and I will be asking those questions and having just a general conversation with our expert. So without further ado, I would like to invite Jeremy to turn on his microphone and camera. Jeremy Nabarro is joining us today from Pool Designs. He is an expert in all things pool design, indoor, outdoor, as well as some of those accessory pool buildings. And he's designed and built pools all over the UK. So today he's going to focus specifically on outdoor pool design, but I will let him speak to you, and please do use that Q&A function and we'll have the recording posted afterwards. So anyone who wants to revisit the information or thinks someone could benefit from watching this can go ahead and watch that at a later date on demand. All right, Jeremy. There you are.
Right, good morning.
Good morning. I can hear you and see you loud and clear. So I'm just going to go off screen and let you take over.
Well done. Well, thank you very much, Jenny. That's good. My name is Jeremy Nabarro. I've been working with swimming pools, fortunately or unfortunately, for 25 odd years now, and they've been both indoors and outdoors, some small, some large. And hopefully I will be able to answer your questions and clarify points with regards to swimming pools. I suppose the first question is why would you have a pool in the first place? Well, there's no doubt that swimming pools give people a lot of pleasure, particularly for children. If you've got young children, either children or grandchildren, they will spend many happy hours in the pool and they will absolutely love it. But for yourself, it's worth considering the exercise angle, that swimming is really the best exercise you could have, because you can't strain yourself, and you can decide how powerfully you want your swimming to be, and it's enjoyable. And these days pools are much more practical and easy than they used to be. I know people always say to me, oh, I know someone who's had a pool and the tiles fell off and it was difficult to maintain and all the rest of it. Well, it's a lot different these days. The technology has improved tremendously, both with regards to the sanitizing of pool water, the keeping of pool water clean, the balancing of pool water. It's all much easier. Obviously, one of the initial points is whether you're going to have an indoor or an outdoor pool, and we're hoping to do a presentation on indoor pools a little later on. But today we're concentrating more on garden pools. So we would assume that this pool will be going probably in your back garden, and there are a number of different types of swimming pools, and the different types of swimming pools affect their cost. You can have quite a small pool, and a small pool can be used as a plunge pool, or more commonly they're used for for exercise purposes, and you can have what's called a countercurrent swim jet unit, which you're basically swimming against a powerful jet of water that's coming towards you, which you can adjust to suit your strength of swimming, so that can be used for swimming exercise and swimming training sort of thing. Obviously, the initial, I suppose, question is where you put the pool in your garden, and I suppose, I mean, 1 or 2 points. Obviously, you need to look at where the trees are in your garden, and you don't want to put it too close to trees because obviously the roots can cause damage to the pool shell. But also, pine needles can be difficult, and leaves generally. So you want to keep it away from trees if you can. You've obviously got to think about services. You've got to get services in the way of electricity, obviously, to run the pump, the filter and things. You've got an automatic filler there, so you've got to connect it to it'll need to be connected to a water supply, and it'll need to have drainage, which I'll cover a little later on. So it's where to locate the pool. Obviously, you want it in a relatively safe position. If you've got young children, you want to think about the safety aspect, and often, therefore, the people have pool covers, which actually will form a seal over the pool. So if a child were to fall on the cover, it would support them. There aren't the regulations in the UK that there are in France, Australia, and the States, where you have to actually have a fence around a pool. But obviously, safety is an important aspect. I suppose another point you need to consider is access for the actual excavation of the swimming pool. The swimming pools can be completely above ground. They're called above ground swimming pools, and they're basically more of the sort of blow up type of pool, quite small, as it were. If it's going to be an in-ground pool, then obviously the ground has to be excavated to take and the spoil mostly has to go away. Obviously, if you can get it so that it can be on a slope, then that will reduce the amount of digging. But you have to be aware that taking spoil away is quite an expensive process. And if you were to have a swimming pool, shall we say 10 meters by 4 meters, you will be involved in probably having 100 to 150 cubic meters of spoil removed. And we've all seen the large muckaway lorries on roads. They tend to take about 10 cubic meters. So you will probably be involved with commissioning 10 to 20 muckaway lorries. Quite expensive. They're normally about £300 per lorry. So that's a consideration. But you've obviously also got to consider how the excavating equipment and the dumper can actually get to your site. Very often with more modern property sort of thing, they've been built side to side on sites, and it's quite difficult getting down the side. You can get pretty small excavators these days that can gain access. Obviously, the smaller the excavator, the more expensive the dig, because it takes it longer, and obviously you've got to have a dumper to actually take the spoil away. Pools mostly these days are shallower than they used to be. So pools years ago used to have diving boards, and diving boards aren't really recommended anymore. They were always pretty dangerous, and there were quite a number of accidents with diving boards, and they're not really used at all now on domestic pools. So most pools tend to have a single overall water depth, and the overall water depth usually is about 1.4 meters, and 1.4 meters, an average height of person would be able to swim satisfactorily in 1.4 meters. People always say, well, what about our young children? All I would say is that most young children can swim pretty well these days, and even if when you get your swimming pool they can't swim, you'll find they'll learn to swim in a matter of weeks. So I don't think you want to be designing your pool specifically for young children, because we all know they grow up pretty quickly, and they'll enjoy the pool even though they're out of their depth. Mostly I would recommend that you do have steps going into the pool as against a ladder. All the older pools tended to have ladders, but they're quite inconvenient, certainly for older people to get into. And most pools now have what we call walk-in steps, where you have a top step which has a wider landing, about 750 by 750, which you can stabilize yourself, and then 4 steps going down into the water. And obviously as you go into the water you're swimming anyway. So we're assuming that the pool is fully in ground. Some pools can be slightly raised, and the advantage of having a slightly raised pool is that obviously dust and muck doesn't blow into the water, and one can get quite an attractive appearance by having the pool, shall we say, 300 millimeters above water level. You can sit on the side and swing your feet in, etc. But that's something to consider as well. So if you're self-building your house, you will no doubt be having a certain amount of excavation done in the way of your foundation and footings, etc. And that's a good time to have a swimming pool done. You can use the same equipment, and obviously the access to the front is much easier then, and because you'll be shifting other muck away, sort of thing, it becomes it becomes more economical. So you've also got to consider the services that go to the pool and where those services are going to be taken to, and you'll need to designate an area for the pool equipment. The pool equipment on an outdoor pool will consist of a pump, a filter, the water sanitizing unit, which is normally an ultraviolet unit, a chlorinator, which will dissolve a small amount of chlorine into the water, and the pool related electrics, which obviously fire up the pump and the underwater lights. The plant area that you will need to allow for will be in the order of 2.5 meters long and 1.5 meters wide. At its simplest, that can be a low-level bunker that you can hide within the bushes or whatever. Often people have them attached to a pool house, and the pool house can be used for changing, relaxing, etc. But you need to designate a place for the pool equipment. The electrical usage you're going to need to allow for is between 30 and 45 amps. So if you've got a single amp supply, if you've got a single phase supply coming into your house, you'll just have to have an electrician look at it and just make sure that you've got enough power that goes to that can go to the swimming pool. Obviously, you've got to allow to heat the water. Everyone has heated water these days. In the days when I was at school, when they had unheated swimming pools, no mum would let their children swim in unheated pools these days. Pools tend to be heated to average of probably 28, 29 degrees, quite warm. And what is mostly used for heating is an air-to-water heat pump. And the air-to-water heat pump basically takes the heat out of the air and puts it into the water. An air-to-water heat pump is the most efficient and economical way of heating pool water. You can preset the temperature that you want, and when you come to choose the heat pump, you can choose a heat pump that is for what they call extended use. And extended use is from April to October, so for the main swimming season. Or you can have a heat pump for year-round heating, which is still perfectly possible with a heat pump. You have to be aware that the heating of a swimming pool in the winter will use 2.5 times the energy than will be used in the in the summer. So you need a rather more powerful heat pump, and obviously it'll cost more to run. People always ask the question, how much does a swimming pool cost in terms of electrical usage? The answer would tend to be, if one takes an average pool that you would be swimming up and down, as it were, so a swimming up and down pool maybe as against the exercise pool I was talking about, and you are using that on an extended use basis from April to October, then you'll be looking at a running cost of something around £1,000 a year, £1,000 worth of electricity a year. But again, if you're heating it through the winter, you would be looking more at £2,500 a year. I mean, with regard to heating again, the older pools all tend to be heated using gas or oil boilers, but boilers are well, relatively inefficient in those days, and that was quite an expensive way of heating a swimming pool. So you'll find people with older pools do remark how expensive it is to heat their swimming pool. Well, you will find that that's not really the case these days. I've got a biggish pool here, and it costs about £1,500 a year to run, but that is because my daughter insists upon it being 31 degrees. I have said to her that's very warm and it doesn't need to be 31 degrees, but she says she won't swim unless it's 31 degrees. So anyway, so but even so, I consider that to swim from April through to October with 31 degree water at about 1,500 a year is not too bad. Another point you've just got to, so sorry. Another point you need to consider is that the pool water needs to be covered when the pool is not in use. Obviously, the majority of the time, the air will be cooler than the water, particularly if you have 28 degree water, and the pool covers can, their simplest be a manual reel, which just turns one way or the other way, and you manually reel it in or reel it out again, and that has a bubble type cover which just spreads over the surface of the water. Those are relatively cheap. The more expensive option is to have what's called a motorized pool cover. The motorized pool cover has a rather similar to the slats on a garage door that you might have seen, and those tend to be insulated, but they have a motorized shaft that again turns one way or the other way and can be operated remotely, and they obviously seal the pool with regards to keeping the heat in. Both will retain the heat efficiently. You can also have a solar cover which attracts the heat of the sun and will trap the sun the heat within the pool. That's certainly worthwhile considering as well. So you've got to consider the pool cover. So just moving forward, I suppose a pool size is another question. Well, obviously it slightly depends on the size of your garden. If it's a small swim jet exercise pool, I suppose that would normally be about 5 meters by 3 meters. If it's a slightly larger swimming up and down type pool, then that would normally be 9 or 10 meters long by 3.5 to 4.5 meters wide. Now, when you come to think about swimming pools and their cost, just the same as bathrooms, kitchens, and the rest, there are different types of pools that you would have which affect their costs, as it were. So the smaller pools tend to be single piece shells, and they're factory made and are delivered to site as a complete, literally like a big bathtub, and it tends to be craned into the hull, lowered down, and that would be what's called a one-piece shell. That obviously slightly depends on access. There are many sites that we see where it's just not possible to get a one-piece shell in, but certainly the single-piece shells are very good. They're made of, they used to be made of GRP, which is fiberglass. They're now mostly made of a material called polypropylene, which is slightly better because the material is throughout the whole thickness, so you don't get any what's called delaminating of it at all. They have long-term guarantees. They're guaranteed for 10 years, and they look very good, and they can be in a number of different colours, so you can choose the colour of the water that you want. So that's called a one-piece shell. The one-piece shells go up to about 10 meters in length. The width is limited by what can go on the lorry, and that they go sideways on the lorry. So probably you'll find on most of them that the widest they can be is a little over 4 meters. But you still get a decent size swimming pool. So that's called a one-piece shell. The second type of pool has walls made of blockwork. Now, what is put down is a reinforced concrete slab base, and then off the base, reinforced blockwork walls are constructed, and that's normally with an outer and an inner skin of 100 mil dense blocks with 150 mil cavity with reinforcement in, and that is mass filled with concrete. So that's called a blockwork pool. The blockwork pool, basically, when the blockwork has been fabricated by the builder or yourselves, then that would be rendered with a sand cement render to make it smooth, and those tend to then have what's called a welded in situ liner. Now that's a flexible lining that goes in, and the flexible lining has mosaic tile prints on it, or it can look like imitation rocks. There's a wide variety of liners. They also are very good these days. The original liners, which are called bag liners, they tended to be very thin, and they did deteriorate and shrink over the years and pull away at the corners and things. That is not the case these days. The welded in situ liner is a very good product. It's guaranteed for 7 years, and certainly I would recommend it. It's an excellent alternative as a type of pool. So that's called a block and liner pool. So you've got the one-piece shell, you've got the block and liner pool, and then thirdly, the more expensive option is to form it in reinforced concrete, which would be cast reinforced concrete, and that would be tiled. The cast reinforced concrete is normally applied by a system called shotcrete, which is similar to the cast process, except that the insulation is used as a back shutter. You've got a twin steel cage formed, and the concrete is sprayed onto the walls. It's then rendered to make it absolutely accurate, and it would then be tiled. You'll find there's quite a cost difference between the single piece shell and the cast concrete shell. If you are a self-builder, and you are, I know most self-builders are not actually building it themselves, but if you happen to be building it yourself, or you're getting or you've got a local builder in to help you, sort of thing, block work is obviously what he's good at, and he can obviously sort out the block work for the swimming pool for you. The alternative obviously is go to a company, a local pool company or company like ourselves, who will come in and will arrange it all for you. So those are the types of pool shells. Obviously the pool shells need to be designed to allow for flow and return pipe work, because the water has got to be drawn from the pool. It's got to be taken through a filter, and the filter these days is filled with little glass balls which very efficiently remove dust and muck from the water. The water is usually sanitized, kept pure, using ultraviolet light. And ultraviolet light is used widely in the water purification industry, and is a very good system. It's a very good system for keeping water pure within swimming pools. It also means that the pool water can be sanitized on the basis of what we call minimal chlorine. Nobody wants much chlorine in their pool. Some chlorine is necessary for the turnover time of the water, which is every 4 to 5 hours. But with the minimal chlorine system and the UV, the balance of chlorine in the water can be maintained at 0.5 parts per million, and that is about the same as in tap water. So that will be will keep the pool water beautifully clean. If you've got any children or yourselves who have delicate skin or eczema or whatever, you'll find it's absolutely satisfactory for that. And that's this UV system that we're recommending is a very good system. Okay. In addition, the water circulation system will be there'll be an automatic filler, and the automatic filler will have a float system similar to a loo sort of thing, which will just keep the water topped up, and the equipment within the plant room can then be checked on a regular basis. Fortunately, the vacuuming of pools, which some of you might have done in your time, the vacuuming of pools is fine when you initially get the pool, but it's quite a boring process to be doing it on a very regular basis. And what you'll find is there are robotic cleaners now, and the robotic cleaners have remote charging, and they have it's quite a small unit. It has tracked wheels, and it will literally go over the base of the pool, up the walls, up the steps, do backflips, all the rest of it. If you've got nothing better to do, he's quite fun to watch him performing. But he totally takes care of leaves, pine needles, blah 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 within the water, and I would thoroughly recommend that you consider having one of those sort of thing. The looking after of pools subsequently, which people always ask about, the water balance needs to be maintained so that the pH is what's called neutral, and neutral pH is 7.2 to 7.4 in most of the areas in the south of England. Not so much, obviously, if you go north in the Pennines and things, but most of the water in the south of England is hard water, and the hard water will be probably a pH of 8.5, maybe slightly less. So you have to pull that pH down to the 7.2, and that takes a certain amount of balancing when the pool is new. But you also have to test it on a regular basis and maintain that pH level. It's relatively easily maintained. There's a chemical called pH minus, which is put in the pool, which will take the pH down. And if you're using a pool company, they will show you exactly how to maintain the pool. Haven't mentioned pool lights. Pool underwater lights are certainly worth specifying. They're mostly LED these days, so the bulbs last a long time, sort of thing. And those would be those are obviously low voltage for safety. So I mean, that's a fair summary of garden pools. If you're obviously, you've got to look at the landscaping around the pool. You'll have some form of terracing, and obviously if your house is existing and you're putting a pool in the garden, you want to plan the excavating quite carefully, because it does make a bit of a mess, sort of thing. So you want to have all the excavating equipment and the dumpers and things going to and fro in one path, and do not let them wander all over your garden, or you'll find it'll be they'll make a bit of a mess. I suppose the final thing is the ongoing maintenance of your pool. Well, you can get a local pool company will come in and will service the pool on a regular basis. If you're doing it yourself, what you'll need to do is the side walls of the pool need to be brushed on a regular basis. I'm afraid that's something you do need to do manually, probably every couple of weeks. It needs to be vacuumed thoroughly. Well, that can use your dolphin or robot cleaner. You need to test the water on a regular basis, and you will have purchased a test kit which enables you to test the pH, the chlorine, calcium hardness, etc. And that will all be explained to you. But it's a fairly simple process. With pool water, I'm afraid it's always possible that pool water can get out of condition. Fortunately, there's a chemical called liquid shock dose, and a small amount of liquid shock dose, probably 5 litres, going into the pool will clear it surprisingly quickly. But you have to be very careful with liquid shock dose. It is pretty powerful, and you want to protect your clothes and certainly not have children anywhere near it. You need to empty the skimmer, which skims any muck off the surface. You need to empty that from time to time, and also the pump strainer basket, which is in the plant room. You need to check, obviously, the heat pump that's working satisfactorily. And I would tend to record the condition of the pool on a regular basis. Record the pH and the chlorine level, etc. before one forgets, sort of thing. That's about it, really. So I would be pleased to answer any questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Jeremy. That was really helpful and sort of well laid out in terms of what someone should really be considering relative to a pool and why they might benefit from having a pool in their home. Out of curiosity, how involved do you typically get in pool designs for clients? Do you get involved at the very early stages, or do you get involved sort of later on?
Yeah, it's a good point, isn't it? One of the points which is worth mentioning is with regard to planning permission, and usually planning for an outside pool in a normal garden is not required. It does have to be behind the front building line of the house. It has to be for the pleasure and recreational use of the occupants of the house. In other words, you can't have all the neighbours coming in and paying you money for for their children swimming. And if it's a conservation area or an area of outstanding natural beauty, then you have to apply for approval. But those are planning is not usually a problem for outdoor pools. Okay,
lovely. Thank you very much. And then in terms of, I had a question come in about cost, and they were talking about sort of the blockwork and liner construction method versus the cast reinforced concrete method.
Yeah.
Can you provide some idea about a typical cost per square meterage? Or
I think it's difficult per square meter. It might work for houses, but it's pretty difficult on swimming pools. And the equipment is the same for all the different types of pools. So if one is looking at the one-piece shell number 1, the blockwork and liner pool number 2, and the cast concrete pool number 3, if you for the moment just take the cover out of the equation, and one looks at a cost for pools that are shall we say 10 meters by 4 meters, and you looked at a single piece pool shell 10 meters by 4 meters, one would be looking at a typical cost for that installed in somewhere in the region of probably £65,000. Okay, if that was a welded in situ liner, you would find that it would be probably £10,000 or £15,000 more. It's more sort of £80,000-85,000. And if you went for the cast concrete and tiled alternative, it would be probably about £15,000 more again. So it's more £100,000. So there is a certain amount of difference between the three.
Yeah, that's really helpful. And because you mentioned the pool covers,
yeah,
does that have a big influence on the cost?
Well, it does have
the two different
costs because if you have the manual pool cover that I was talking about, where it is simply a manual reel with a bubble cover on it, that's relatively economical, which is probably £1,500. But if you have the motorized alternative, then you're probably looking at near £10,000 or £12,000. So it's a lot of difference, I'm afraid.
Okay. Okay. But then cost savings, you said they both perform well. Does the motorized one perform better because
Well,
of the
it
insulation?
performs slightly better. I mean, you couldn't say that you would recover the cost of it based on its insulation value. It's a slightly better insulation
Okay.
value. The reason that people have motorized pool covers is more for convenience, to be honest. Is that actually dragging a quite a large sheet over the pool is quite difficult. And I know with my pool at home, I started off having a manual cover, and we all came to the conclusion after a couple of years that it wasn't satisfactory, and we put a motorized cover in. But it's a cost thing again, you know.
Yeah. Absolutely. On the energy side of things, do a lot of people use solar panels to help offset some
Well,
of the costs?
I suppose, as you know, there's a considerable move towards PV panels, but PV panels are generating electricity. The electricity obviously is helping the overall property, and certainly that will help run the heat pump. That would be excellent. Solar thermal is not used so much in the UK. If you go to hot climates, it's the main way that, well, the water is heated in the house, and indeed pool water is heated. We don't get enough hot weather in the UK, really. I mean, just looking outside at the beautiful weather, but it's not very warm today, actually.
Well, good. And in terms of when would you want someone to, I guess, get in touch with you if they were thinking about, say, instead of adding it to their existing garden and house, but if they wanted to do it as part of the full design because of the planning implications, do you think it would be best to actually get a pool designer in from the early design stages, pre-planning, rather than waiting and just having their architect or their planning consultant put sort of a block on the page?
Yeah, so it's a good point, as you're aware, as an architect. There is nothing to take the place of having proper plans drawn up, developing a full specification, know exactly who's going to quote you for what, and not get surprised on site by cost. And it's one of the main, having worked in the building trade for many years, the most satisfactory way of running building contracts is if people know what they're going to cost. Everyone gets fed up when costs endlessly go up, and actually often when they go up, it's not the builder's fault. It's the things haven't been specified properly. I'm not being rude about you as an architect. I know your plans are absolutely beautiful, but it's not the same in all cases. And all we would say is, yeah, I mean, pre-planning, there's a few items to discuss in the way of services, position, size of plant room, that sort of thing. And when the plans are being drawn up for the house itself, certainly one wants to look at specify the groundworks. The groundworks can be done at the same time, and the builders on site doing the excavation for the foundation footings, etc. That's an ideal time to do the digging out of the pool, because he'll dig out the pool in a matter of days. It can be done very economically. If it's done afterwards, it's quite a lot more expensive. So certainly, if you can put in if you fancy having a pool, the time to do it, if you're building a house, is when you're actually building the house.
Brilliant. And do you think that if someone's building a new house, that they were taking on the project management of the house, do you think they could also take on the project management of the pool build part component of it, or would you suggest getting a specific pool contractor in to do it fully turnkey?
I think that one would involve a pool contractor on items like pump filtration, sanitizing, and the heat pumps, the specialist side of things, because they do it all the time. And you'll find most of the builders don't much want to get involved in pool works, to be honest. If it's the blockwork type of pool, that is certainly something one can discuss. And certainly we as a company, or I'm sure other companies as well, can give a hand with regard to specifying of the blockwork swimming pool, and the shell can be formed by the pool, by the builder, but I would tend to recommend that the pool is finished by the pool company.
Okay.
So the actual lining or the tiling of it and the pump filtration, sanitizing, is, I mean, it's not highly complicated, but it's quite specialist, isn't it? And the vital thing on swimming pools, to state the obvious, is that they're waterproof, and you want to have one person in the frame for making sure the pool is waterproof. Yeah, pools leak.
So if that is a very good point, and I think one that everyone should take to heart. Exactly. Is there, looking at the different construction types, is there any difference in the longevity or the performance from that standpoint?
That's a very good point. I mean, if one was looking in the longer term, and money wasn't the principal object, one would go for a tiled swimming pool. The tiled pool is the best form of swimming pools. I'm not saying the other types are in any way inferior, but they probably won't last quite as long. But we're still, these days, we're talking about 15 or 20 years. We're not talking about in the short term. So they're all good.
Okay. And I guess maintenance, also regular maintenance, adds to the longevity.
It's the same as the house, really. That everything needs to be maintained, I'm afraid. And you've got moving parts on a swimming pool, and you've got water. And water, if water's not maintained satisfactorily, it will get out of condition. So you've got to keep an eye on it. As I said, it's much simpler these days, but it still has to be kept an eye on.
Do you think most people could actually maintain their pools themselves, or
Yeah. It's a time. Well, number one, it's a time question, and number two, a lot of people prefer getting other people to do things, don't they? A lot of people don't want to do anything these days. so I mean, I have a pool servicing business that services sort of 200 pools around the country, and those 200 people have no intention of doing anything on their pools, but that's definitely not necessary. We also have many clients, particularly clients who are retired, who we show how to do it, and they do it on a regular basis. And it's the regularity, you know.
Okay.
It's to have a list of things that you do every 2 weeks, and and then it's relatively straightforward and simple.
Okay, that's great. That's really useful. Well, I don't see any further questions have come in, Jeremy, but I was wondering if you could leave us with sort of telling us how people can get in touch with you if they're interested in learning more about their pool design.
Of course. Well, my name is Jeremy Nabarro. Our company is called Pool Design Limited. We've got an internet site which is pooldesignlimitedltd.com. My email address is jeremy@pooldesignlimited.com. And yes, we go all over the country. So if we can give any help, either for renovating pools or for new pool shells, please let me know. Be very happy to help.
That's lovely. Well, thank you very much. I will just end by sort of summarizing the top takeaways that I noted as you were speaking, and hopefully that will be helpful for everyone. Well, first of all, I think one of the points that Jeremy talked about is really considering the use of your pool in order to make sure that you're putting the right pool in for the intended use. Another really critical component is to consider the site location, and that site location is relative to services, safety of the pool, any vegetation that's around the pool, as well as access in terms of excavation, because there is a considerable amount of excavation that takes place relative to an installation of a new pool, a new in-ground pool. There are 3 primary construction methods for pools, and this is going to have an influence on the cost of the pool and potentially the longevity, but not quite as much. But the important thing to note is that not all construction types may be appropriate for your pool. So it's really important to talk to a pool designer about the requirements for your pool. Finally, make sure that you understand what maintenance is required. And if you're able to do that yourself, make sure you're regular about it and know what you need to be doing in order to get that done. And I thank you very much for joining us, Jeremy. We'll see if maybe we can get something else on indoor pools in a future session. And we'd be delighted to have you again.
Okay. Thank you very much. See you all soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye.
And as a reminder, we do have a few in-person events coming up. The NSBRC in Swindon has its sort of summer mid-year show coming up. It is the Festival of Sustainable Homes. It is very similar to all of their other shows, but with a focus on that low energy sustainability component of self-build and renovation projects. That's in Swindon, 16th and 17th of May. We also have several self-build seminars that ACA host. Those are in the Scotland office on the 13th of July, or I'm sorry, that's the 13th of June. So we'll edit that and make sure that's clarified in when we send that out. 13th of June, but also in Swindon at the NSBRC on the 4th of July. We will be joined next month by Alan, who is going to be talking to us about WOW design features and how to add those to your project with an appropriate cost associated with them. All of us have a budget, and so, but we can still have that, architect design house with WOW features as long as we think carefully about that. So you can join us on the 8th of May for that self-build hour, and that is same time, same place at 1 p.m. And we look forward to seeing you again next month. And thank you all for attending. We'll send out an email as soon as that recording is posted online. See you next month.